Welcome along. Joe Molloy with you this evening. Great to have you with us. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Busy show. Keith Wood is going to join us for Wednesday night rugby. That will be after 8 o'clock. This hour, there have been numerous concerns raised over various aspects of HIA protocol in rugby over the last number of days. I think it's fair to say Dr. Barry O'Driscoll has been raising concerns for years at this stage, resigned from World Rugby a decade ago over this issue, broadly speaking. So Dr. Barry O'Driscoll is going to join us 7:30 or so this hour to talk us through what he has made of the last few days in New Zealand. Mick McCarthy in studio, hello.
Hey Joe.
And Richie McCormack with us as well. Richie, hello. Ooh, you're muted. Weave your fader down. Some combination of the two.
Can't hear you, Richie.
There we go. How are you? All good now.
Unmute. I know, it's a crazy thing. No, we've got you now.
We think. Do we?
Cool.
Oh, there's a hell of a delay then.
Hope so.
Sorry. There's an unbelievable delay. Oh my God, this is going to be interesting. Okay. We'll try and patch up that line. Maybe the guys outside might do a redial or something, because this could be interesting otherwise. Mick, in other words, or in other news, we'll keep people abreast of the situation. Boris Johnson has suffered more resignations in one day than any Prime Minister in history. Hell of a stat.
So, yeah. Like, there's what's the old expression about, decades when nothing happens and weeks when decades happen? Like, today in the news outside of the world of sport, I felt jealous of the non-sport world. For a very, very rare that happens. But like in Ireland, we had a minister, Joe McHugh, voting against the government and becoming it means the government have lost their majority in the Dáil, their voting majority. In America, we had the former White House counsel to Donald Trump agreeing and being subpoenaed and agreeing to testify against him. And then in the UK, you have Boris Johnson hanging on by his fingernails as, I think, that's a 38, it's up to now, resignations. Him being told on camera, he was at a committee meeting in Parliament and was told on camera that there's a load of ministers waiting outside for you. They're about to tell you to resign. What do you think of that, Boris? How's your day going? It's just absolutely insane. Every time you turn on your computer, it's just something new as well. Like, it's non-stop.
Great stats out of this as well. The previous record for ministerial resignations, 11 in 1932. Boris is at 14 today.
So I think it's 38 in terms of overall resignations. This must be cabinet or
Ministerial.
Yeah.
14 of your ministers go in one day. That is good going.
How many does he have?
Don't know. I didn't realise he had so many. 17 since 6 o'clock yesterday is when all this started, of course, and then 40 MPs, junior ministers, etc. But 17 since yesterday, 14 today. Like, in context, Gordon Brown in 3 years had 13 ministers quit. Cameron had the same, 13.
Yeah.
So Boris has knocked that out of the park in 24 hours.
Unbelievable. What I did enjoy one part of today actually was the Chancellor, Richie resigned last night, but he was replaced by a guy whose name escapes me, but that guy is part of the Heave.
Oh, yeah.
Having been promoted by Boris 24 hours ago.
When you're newly
he's now trying to get rid of him.
Promoted Chancellor
hasn't even moved in yet.
Isn't a fan.
No.
It's not good. So we will keep you up to date if the inevitable, as it seems to be at this
it's
stage.
feeling more and more so that, like, less so in the kind of, sometimes there's a kind of a quaint old news feeling of, like, we expect him to resign because no Prime Minister in history has survived this kind of thing. And with the reporting around Trump and Johnson, it's like as if people haven't come around to the fact that this is new. We don't need to worry about what the old rules were, but it's feeling more and more like, even internally, that this actually can't be survived at this stage, and it could happen tonight during our show.
The Newsround is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Testing 1 2. Richie McCormack, how are we looking now? Oh,
Say again, Joe?
no. Unbelievable delay. Here's what's going to happen. I am just going to throw to you now, and radio listeners, bear with us a moment. Richie will then start with the Newsround. Richie, take it away.
Yeah, Ireland will have to play for minor placings at the Women's Hockey World Cup. They were beaten 3-0 by Germany in their Pool A game this evening in Amstelveen. A third defeat in a row means Ireland finished bottom of the pool, and Roisin and Upton knows how costly yesterday's defeat to Chile has proved.
I suppose on reflection, we left a lot of opportunities behind us yesterday against Chile, and we knew today was going to be an even tougher battle with Germany off the back of 2 rest days and us playing again within 24 hours. But we have to bounce back. Our tournament isn't over, and look, we're just bitterly disappointed where we are now, but just grateful to all the Irish support, to everybody that's over here.
Yeah, big disappointment. Wimbledon as well, Richie?
Yeah, Rafa Nadal is currently serving to stay in the tournament. He's battled through an abdominal issue all the way through his quarterfinal with the 11-seed Taylor Fritz this evening. It's currently 5-4 to the American in the 5th and deciding set, 50-all in that game at the moment, the 10th game of the deciding set. This will go to a championship tiebreak if they're not separated after 6 games apiece. The winner, though, will play Nick Kyrgios in the final, or in the semi-finals, at the weekend. Kyrgios today a straight sets winner over the unseeded Chilean Cristian Garin. Meanwhile, Simona Halep will play Elena Rybakina in the women's semi-finals. 2019 champion Halep beat Amanda Anisimova in straight sets today, while first-time semi-finalist Rybakina came from a set down to beat Ayla Tomljanovic in 3. It's 8 years since Halep first reached the semis at Wimbledon, and she believes she's better prepared for the occasion this time around.
It's different because in between were many years since my first semi-final. I am different as a person. I really believe that. I am stronger with my emotions. I can control emotions much better. I have experience, but it's always special when you step on the court in the semi-final of a Grand Slam. So I will see tomorrow and I will tell you what I'm going to feel. But it's going to be nice for sure.
Joe, I was just thinking that today was a great illustration of what I've always thought of as Wimbledon ever since I kind of was past school age, I suppose, and I've been in work, which is you try and watch a bit of it if you can, but generally, and especially since working for the 7 o'clock show, but between the hours of 5, your head is down a little bit, and being in the office as the TV is on and people are starting to gradually gather around it, it's a good game, but you have to forget in between. You go down, you're typing, you're looking at your computer, you're checking Boris Johnson updates, let's be honest, and next thing it's that amazing scream of the Wimbledon crowd that's in the background, and that unbelievable commentary that's all of a sudden they say, oh my goodness, what a shot, and you're thinking, what is this drama I'm missing? And there's kind of there's almost nothing like Wimbledon for that, and it's and now we're in here missing the concluding set.
Sold out stadiums are going to be a feature of Euro 2022, and that very much applies to opening night, Richie.
Yeah, Old Trafford sold out for tonight's opening match of the Women's Euro 2020. Leah Williamson captains the host England as they take on Austria in Group A, and kickoff is coming up in just under an hour's time. 8 p.m. is when things get underway in Manchester.
Now, Raheem Sterling. So this is happening, we think.
Yeah, it looks like it is. Raheem Sterling has reportedly agreed personal terms with Chelsea. The England winger has a year left on his Manchester City contract and is likely to command a fee of around €52 million, much like Gabriel Jesus when he went to Arsenal. Chelsea hope to wrap up the deal in time for Sterling to play on their pre-season tour of the United States.
So it's a similar price to what Man City paid for Sterling. They've had all these years of service from him, and now they're selling him and recouping a lot of that money. It's good business for their part. There was always the nagging sense. To be fair, he had some extraordinary seasons.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah.
There was a nagging sense that Pep wasn't fully sold on Sterling, and I guess there's a reason he lets him go.
Yeah, it did feel last year that we were reaching the end of the road. I think he'd been amazing up until then, and he'd been one of the true catalysts to that team, but it did feel like they were moving on without him last season. It's kind of remarkable, the career that Sterling is going to have. Has anyone done this? Can you see him in 2 or 3 years going to Man United or to Spurs or something like that, or Arsenal, and it's just play with all of the top teams one after the other, to go from Liverpool to Man City and now to Chelsea, especially for an English player, is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unusual, right? Because during the Euros last year, he was doing interviews about how he was happy again and he was playing with freedom again and was really enjoying being part of the English setup, and it was a very pointed thing to say about, well, I've got to go back to the tough life under Pep at Manchester City without naming names or saying anything too explicit. So there was just even that sense that, was he overly enjoying life under Pep? So Chelsea,
if you think there's a lack of form possibly over the last year or so, and it might have been something to do with what you're talking about there, that could be an unbelievable signing for Chelsea. There's still a lot of football left in Sterling, presuming that he's kind of taking a temporary dip rather than it kind of coming to a premature decline. Yeah.
So Maddie Kenny.
Yeah, he stepped down as Dublin senior hurling manager, ending a 4-year spell in charge. The Galway native took over from Pat Gilroy in late 2018. Under Kenny this year, the Dubs lost to Kilkenny and Galway in the Leinster Championship, missing out on the All-Ireland series. They also finished third in Division 1B of the Allianz Hurling League with 2 defeats to their name there.
What are we to say of Matty Kenny's time? Highly regarded coach.
Disappointing. I think you have to be honest. I like Dublin had their moments, and they obviously beat Galway, not Galway, the championship during COVID, and that was great. Too often didn't follow up with it, and I thought they were very poor this year. They had that win against Wexford, but come the Kilkenny game, come Galway game, they just didn't leave a mark on them, and it feels to me like Dublin have lost a moment in a way, as in like there's a couple of good players there, don't get me wrong, but there isn't maybe the pick that was there during the Daly era, and I would be interested as to know why, and I don't understand how Dublin, with the amount of clubs, with the amount of emphasis on hurling in so many of those clubs, can have such a weak pick. But that's what it looked like if you were watching, especially the Kilkenny game. They were so disappointing.
Yeah.
Is that all down to Matty Kenny? You would have to say absolutely not. This is a coach who won the All-Ireland with Coola. He obviously is a very good manager. I think there's other issues at play there, but at the same time, I think this is one of the least surprising announcements that we'll hear in the GA world this year. Is it felt like time was up, and it felt like it was time to go somewhere else.
Because certainly during the halcyon days of the Daly era, there was a sense that, wow, this is just the beginning.
Yes.
Wait and you see, with this population and the club scene, and then latterly Coola, wait and you see what Dublin hurling is going to be in another 10 years. We're getting up to 10-year point now, and it's gone into a decline and looks fairly stagnant.
Yeah.
So it is curious to know what's happened there.
You have someone like Owen O'Donnell, now in fairness, who's to say he's not going to be available to the hurlers next year, but when he joined the Dublin footballers, plays in the All-Ireland quarter-final after the season he has, and he is the linchpin. He's Dublin's world class, if you want for want of a better word, player at the moment, and he's gone to play football now. Not a good sign. It doesn't feel like we're in that era where we're thinking, could Conal Keaney possibly move over to the hurlers? Could we have one or two more after him? It feels like we're going completely the opposite way, and you just hope that Dublin don't slip back to where they were 10, 15 or 15, 20 years ago, when they were like struggling to even compete in the Leinster Championship.
And hurling needs everybody it can get. For all that we bemoan the wrongs of football.
Yeah.
Like the most glaring issue in the GAA is that there are X number of counties who play hurling to a certain level.
Without a doubt. It drives me absolutely mad. I don't understand it. But 2013 All-Ireland semi-final, Dublin and Cork, I think 60-odd thousand, more than we had at the games last weekend, and an almost a heaving Hill 16 of blue and navy, and you're thinking this is what it should be, this is what it's supposed to be, and this should take off from here, and instead it went the other way.
Richie, lots of people out there take massive notice of who the referee is going to be for an All-Ireland final, so hurling fans, do you?
A little bit, yeah.
I can't tell you who's refereeing any game. The last referee I can actually name with certainty is Pat McEnany in 1996. Other than that, I just don't know. So who's up for abuse for the next 20 years?
Colm Lyons is the name you have to remember for the All-Ireland final meeting of Limerick and Kilkenny on Sunday week. It'll be the Nemo Rangers officials' first senior All-Ireland final. He's previously taken charge of both Munster and Leinster finals.
Where are you in that spectrum, Richie? I mean, are you one of those like, he gave a penno against Man United 4 years ago, biased?
Yeah, it seems to be like we talk about the pool of the pool of counties that are good at hurling at a certain level. It seems to be there's a pool of referees that only ever get All-Ireland finals and get All-Ireland semi-finals. Like, how many times can David Coldrick in football be given, the whistle on big matches? Like, we were going through a couple of weeks ago, myself and Mick there, was it the 2014 semi-final with Mayo and Kerry, and Coldrick was involved then, and Coldrick was involved again recently. Like, it's just...
and I think David
but
Goff
ultimately,
had to replay that.
Yeah, and I don't think you go through it, and in the same way that there's that parochial thing on Twitter of, oh God, Anthony Taylor lives X amount of miles from Liverpool, how dare he take charge of it. I don't think people generally care. No. It's just, I think, a point of recognition for the official that they actually get to be the man in the middle for an All-Ireland decider, which is, it's big for them. It's usually big for their club and big for their county as well.
Which sport do you think it has biggest bearing on?
Rugby.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, and that's what I was going to come in on, is that for me anyway, it's not the, he's given the X amount of penalties against Liverpool and so on. It's about the in a very rugby way. For hurling especially, with so much interpretation, it's about the flow of the game, and it's about what kind of game are we getting because we have this referee. So you have Fergal Horgan did the semi-final between Kilkenny and Clare. You kind of knew what that meant in a way. You know what I mean? It just means that he's not going to be pulling you up on silly things. He's not going to be worried about, you know, if he doesn't know, for example, whether it's a throw or a hand pass, he's just going to play on. You know, and if he does, if it's likely to be a shoulder, but he's not 100% sure, he's going to play it like a shoulder. It's letting it flow, but in a reasonable way. Like, I mean, Fergal Horgan still gives a lot of frees and give an awful lot of 10-yard move up for complaint as well.
So who would be the hurling poster boy ref for pedantic?
Oh, that's a good question. So I don't know, maybe I'm not on that level actually. You probably want to get like
53106. I'll read out the text indiscriminately.
But, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's name names.
That's actually what I was going to. That's the reason. There is a couple of names jump to mind, but I just can't be 100% sure of them. But what is interesting here is that, and look, it's interesting that it's Colin Lyon's first final, and I don't think it's undeserved. And look, he's a decent ref. He might be a little bit more on that pedantic side. John Keenan from Wicklow, which in itself is a good thing, had the Munster final. Widely praised as somebody who, you know, lent room for such a classic game that everybody seemed to enjoy and think was brilliant. Then the Sunday game happened. Then the suspensions that never were happened. The revised referees report. John Keenan was, by all accounts, given a stern rebuke by the referees committee for letting the game flow, again, in the way that people seem to want it to happen, and hasn't got a game since. So when he was on the semi-finals thing, it was like, will he get the final? And I remember saying, I don't think he will. Don't think we'll see him again this year. You know, so that's an interesting reason, an interesting angle of Colin Lyons getting this game.
Right, okay. I mean, certainly Keith Wood is on later. Like, much of the talk about the New Zealand game on Saturday is that the referee, Carl Dickinson, had a certain interpretation of the breakdown, which had a massive bearing in the game. And there are certain sports, definitely hurling, where there's lots of contact and lots of room for pulling up fouls, and rugby where there's a breakdown every 2 seconds and there's a lot of interpretation of the breakdown. I mean, you watch rugby with former professionals and they're like, what was that for?
No, absolutely.
So much going on.
And rugby is such a huge part of it because its referees just do interpret things differently and see the rules differently.
Totally. Whereas I think a game of football, GA and soccer, but soccer in particular, I don't think the referee generally has a huge bearing on the flow of a game. Within reason, obviously it can have some. But
what if they're a Liverpool supporter though and Manchester United are playing?
Eddie Brennan for Dublin, says John, hopeful in Dublin. Well, that is an interesting point. We had Eddie Brennan with us in Derry a couple of weeks ago. It's a great call, yeah, for sure. And Brennan has been linked with the Cork job in light of Kieran Kingston stepping aside. And Di Regan was on our Sunday evening Twitter Spaces GA show, and he was saying Eddie would be a strong candidate. And myself and Mortras Nicalig were in Derry, and invariably the Shefflin Cody thing came up, and we said, what about you? He seemed to like you when you were at Laois. And Eddie said, yeah, well, that picture was taken after they pumped us by 10 points. So we said, would you take the
points is not bad, to be honest.
Yeah, but would you take the Cork job? And he was really, seeing the reality of Henry managing a rival now, not just because of the Cody factor, but seeing the reality of Cody, of Shefflin having to do it. He's like, I'm not sure. And I got the sense he was leaning towards, I don't think so. I don't think I could do it. But Dublin, where are Dublin? Dublin aren't quite
I'll tell you
Cork.
where Dublin are. They're in the Leinster Championship, where Cork aren't. And I think for Cody, you've got Galway are their main rivals, and then depending on what's happening, Wexford or Dublin are coming at them next.
Hatred of a Dublin. There's no,
it's not about hatred though. It's about coming
rivalry
to take my place and having someone to come and knock us off our perch, beat us, kick us out of Leinster. I honestly would say that it wouldn't go down well. Does that mean Eddie shouldn't take it? Absolutely not. It's a perfect job for him. He's involved with Kula, or has been.
The Kula link.
And why not? Like, I mean, he'd be great. Like Davy Fitz, basically, everybody claims anyway, whether it's true or not, put his hand up for the job on the Sunday game after Dublin were knocked out and talked about all the work that's done there and all the hurlers they have. And, in some ways, some people saw it as a pitch for the job. There's going to be all the same names bandied around whenever jobs like this come up. But the Dublin one, see, this is what I want to know. I want to know, is it an attractive prospect? And I just feel like I would like to hear more about what's going on, what the attitude is, what the players are like coming through. They're always involved in the latter stages of underage Leinster competitions. There's hurlers there somewhere. It's just how they can be developed into senior intercounty All-Ireland contenders. Surely it's possible in the county the size of Dublin.
Sterling so overrated, says a texter. Total hype job.
Davey.
Sterling so overrated, says a texter. Total hype job. Tap in merchant. Misses an obscene amount of sitters. If you want to move to break down, pass it to Sterling. Anonymous. I still have reservations about Sterling, I would have to say as well. I think the best aspect of his game is his movement off the ball. He makes these extraordinarily good runs and he can beat a man in tight spaces, and that's not to be underestimated. Do I have full confidence I'm putting the house on this guy Ruud van Nistelrooy style to finish a chance? Absolutely not. And he is a weak striker of the football. I mean, when Sterling cuts in on to his right foot from 25 yards out, he doesn't have a good strike of a football. Now, that's not to say in a Man City team he hasn't been able to score a gazillion goals, because his movement is so good. And he has improved as a finisher under Pep, there is no question. But I do understand and know with that point. You said stop, Richie. You didn't like it.
But he's not a striker, like, is he? Like, I mean, it's he puts himself in that position to create or score the goals by everything he does. Sometimes you don't have to be the greatest finisher in the world. He's still scored an awful lot of goals.
He's a modern day left of a three. So
I know he's a forward. Yeah.
I was leaving a gap for Richie, but the delay is too hard. The delay is too hard.
I'm too distracted by Nadal anyway, to be honest with you.
Oh, what's happening?
He's nearly there. They're into a championship tiebreak in that fifth set, so finished 6 games apiece. So it's going to be the first of 10 with 2 to spare to get over the line here. Nadal currently leading 5-1 against Fritz, who dropped a couple of points on his serve in this tiebreak. They've just had the changeover of ends. Nadal serving, and as I say, 5-1 up in this tiebreak, looking to meet Nick Kyrgios. It's now 5-2 in the semi-finals. So it's all going to be decided over the next 5-10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Championship tiebreaker sham.
Okay.
Should be infinite.
27 games to 20.
Isner hoot, isn't it?
Yeah.
The old Mahu Isner, yeah.
Where are we going next, Rich?
To this morning, Dermot O'Sullivan is back. Pat Ryan to succeed as Cork senior hurling manager. The Rock was a selector under Kieran Kingston, who stepped down on Sunday after a 3-year second spell in charge. O'Sullivan rounded on the critics of Kingston's tenure with a tweet on Sunday night and explained his reasoning for that on this morning's OTB AM.
It's very simple, right? Social media has now become society, right? And a lot of things are driven through social media, etc., etc. But through that, you need to find balance, right?
Good luck with that.
You know, and that's impossible. But if you look at it, there's a number of guys in the game, Martin. Look at Paul Murphy, right? He's one of the most balanced guys I've ever seen to talk about the game, Martin. To be fair, Eddie Brennan, similar, James O'Connor, right? They're very, very balanced guys. And they're fair but judgmental at the same time. You know, I think that's what anyone is looking for. But I suppose Kieran has worked under some of the most scrutinised conditions any intercounty manager has faced. You know, I do believe that Cork is still the most attractive. Cork manager's job is still the most attractive in the country. Some people are probably looking at their computer screens now already to figure, what is this guy on about? That's my opinion, right? As we know what to say about opinions, but that's another story. I do believe it's the most prestigious job in hurling. But again, it's the most scrutinised, and you know, whatever about national media, etc. Some of the harshest scrutiny has come from people within Cork. People who've worn the red jersey, people who've stood in the line doing certain roles as part of Cork setup, etc. So, you know, it's tough to take in that circumstance. You know, it's tough. It's tough when your own turn and you haven't started to throw straight remarks.
Who's he talking about?
I don't know. I have an idea of one or two people who I've heard make comments that I think could be taken out of context as well. That's why I don't want to name anyone, and I'm sure people will see out there if they want to look it up themselves. But I've heard people say things in a more nuanced way that, when clipped, could sound like unfair criticism of Kieran Kingston, and maybe passion gets away from people. I don't know I think if you look at the overall view of how Cork's season was analysed this year, I don't know how unfair it's been. You obviously don't want to get personal things, and obviously, like, you know, we had Andy McEntee in here, a couple of weeks ago, and some of the stuff has been ridiculous and does be from anonymous Twitter trolls, but like for ex-county players and all, I do feel like they're entitled to give their opinion and to say what they think is wrong. And like, Cork have been underachieving for a long time. They've won All Ireland since 2005.
Yeah.
And
you can't really say it's the most attractive, prestigious job in hurling and then stand over not winning All Ireland.
And then, exactly. Like, I mean, and it's Kieran's second go, and he did have great moments, and he did a good job, I would say. But it's time to move on. And whether there was too much criticism or not, I don't know really. But it just feels to me as if like sometimes any criticism can be taken as too much criticism.
Well, it never stood out to me as, geez, Cork are getting rough going in the media, but we're all more attuned to the criticism we get. So it'd be interesting, say Dermot went in and was part of the Kilkenny setup. I'm sure he'd feel, geez, we're getting so much stick from people. There's always that aspect to criticism as well.
Yeah, look, and I mean, like we did a piece in the middle of the season after they lost their first 2 games. It was with Sarah Donovan and Mick Foley, and it was hard enough hitting, but I again, it was on the players and it was on the management team, and it was a talk about a change in management team and all, but I don't know if it ever got into the stage where it was anything other than analysing how he was doing as a hurling manager. And I just, again, and maybe I'm wrong about that, and I absolutely am open to be, but I just do question whether we sometimes get rightly sensitive about anything too personal, and if that feeds into not realising that sometimes you can just be critical of someone in a sporting sense,
We are pretty much out of time. Mick, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Richie McCormack, back to Nadal. Thanks very much.